Hey everyone, Margarita here. I'm going to do this episode on the inappropriate texts that my mother was sending to my dad shortly after his injury, after he had fallen 15 feet from his scissor lift, cracked his head open, had a 13-inch rod put in his spine in emergency surgery, had a broken sternum, broken shoulder blade, and all these other injuries. And he's disabled from the stomach down as well. So the inappropriate texts begin shortly after his fall. Mind you, she was in California when it happened, did not return for 4 days. She had no intention of returning, and the only reason she did is because his work bought her a plane ticket, and had she not accepted it, she would have looked guilty or crazy. So she took the flight home. And in the meantime, she had sent her sister and her sister's daughter to come scream delusions at me a couple of times on her behalf while she was off in California. And here I was there every night taking care of him. And not only that, so these texts are throughout that first year. And what she would do is, because in the beginning she was only seeing him once or twice a week for a short period of time, for a couple hours, and did not start seeing him more frequently for about another month or two in, and then she made it 3 or 4 days a week, and then eventually 5 to 6 days later down the line. And in the beginning, because my dad had hit his head, he actually had more sense about her as a person and what her malicious activities, her odd behavior, the things she's saying and doing. He picked up on it quickly, and in one of these texts he actually asked her for a pen and a pad of paper, and it was because he wanted to write down her odd behavior and the things she was saying and doing. However, shortly after she brought it to him, she began poisoning his food more. Well, this is about when it started. So once he got to Specialty Spinal Care Facility in Romulus, Michigan, that began happening at least twice a week, where he'd be extremely unwell. He wasn't really in a place to do that with what she was doing to him, and it continued on that way. So not only that, there's other texts between other family members about how, and it proves how she's been telling people the delusions about me and this whole false narrative, which is not real. And there's some text between her and I as well, which I'm confronting her on the delusions she tells people. And there is a recording of her. This was after the first weekend of August. He was released into her care from Specialty Spinal Care Facility after I told him initially, before he checked in as a patient there at the beginning of his injury, not to release him to her for any reason, and what was going to happen if they did. And they did, and then she brought him back barely alive, dumped him off there, and within the hour, they had to call 911. He was in septic shock, and that's how he got intubated with the trach tube surgery had to be done, and that's how he got that. And I told them that in advance, and I also made it a police report in Royal Oak, Michigan, where his first hospital stay was as well, because Beaumont Hospital out there was also not taking me seriously due to whatever delusions she was telling them. So some of these texts you can clearly see, because these are with numerous family members, and the recording is shortly after he was dumped off at Specialty and then rushed to Beaumont Wayne, where he was in the ICU, intubated and unconscious. That's when that recording is from, and you can tell by what she's saying she's extremely guilty, and that's what she was trying to do, which is what I had warned everybody in advance. And not only that, but he had a passcode on his phone, and he had my daughter and I help him keep changing this passcode because she kept getting into his phone and he didn't want her in his phone. So that's and shortly before that we had changed it for him. And then you can tell in the recording that she seems very guilty when when she's asked how she got we ask her how she gets the passcode, and then her voice gets all quiet. You can tell she's reaching for something to say, oh, I just guessed it. No, he had just changed it because she kept getting into his phone. And the other thing is, after she would send these malicious texts and these inappropriate texts to him throughout the injury, what would happen is, because I was there almost every night, I would see these and take pictures of them. And then when she would arrive, she would grab his phone, wait for him to be getting changed by the staff, and she would go into the hallway and delete all of her malicious texts to him, so there would be no evidence. But she had no clue I was actually taking pictures before she ever even got there because she was not there that often. So there's numerous key points here. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you, this is 2 days after his injury, after he fell off the scissor lift. He did crack his head open. It is about an 8-inch gash that is split open. They didn't do anything about it because the emergency surgery on his spine was the main concern, and it was so extravagant, that's what they had needed to address. So I'm going to show you the split open head picture. This was the back of his head 2 days later. So trigger warning, if you can't stand that type of thing, don't watch, but I'm going to show you. Okay, so he actually did not realize that he had split his entire head open. He was trying to describe to me what had happened after he fell, and he didn't realize it was split quite like that. So the first set of malicious texts happened on February 21st, 2023. So this is about 3 weeks after he fell. Mind you, he's in terrible shape. All these injuries, very extreme, very severe pain and suffering. He's not doing well. And this is what she sends him. It's a picture of their backyard deck. She says, your idea of putting the deck boards up against each other was not good. The one by the step is lifting up. I almost tripped on it taking a bag of trash out to the dumpster. Should I try pounding it down? And he tells her no. She says, call me with your schedule for tomorrow. Then he tells her those first few weren't glued as good as the rest. Leave everything until the assessment next week. And then she says, let me know by your schedule. He sends it to her. And she says, do you still want me to come? I will deposit your check at 9, then head over there. Can't stay long because I need to head home before rush hour starts. Bad weather Wednesday and Thursday. The last sentence is cut off. Something along the lines of she can't drive well. No sense in hanging around. Is there enough money in the checking to cover the water bill now? And he said, you have time. The water bill isn't due until March 7th. And she says, the house payment is due March 1st. If the money is just sitting there, I want to pay. I hate to go all the way out there to see you for 2 hours. Plus, it sounds like you're having company with all these demanding question marks. And then she says, you haven't written anything in the checkbook since Christmas Eve of 2022. And he tells her, I don't need to. I keep track on my phone and it doesn't bother me. And she said, well, a lot of good that does me good night, with all these exclamation points. Then he tells her, you had your money, I had mine. So that plays a key role right there. Him telling her when he's fully with it, I had my money, you had yours. He paid all of the bills. She had her little bullshit job where she made 30 grand a year, and didn't really pay any bills. So he paid everything. And later down the line, when the night before 1/8/24, when he had to be resuscitated and then had brain damage, lost a lot of oxygen to the brain, and went permanently blind because she came in with a poisoned batch of food is what happened. And 10 days later, the night before is when they had the fight about his 401k funds, which he had told me, or it was a couple nights later. The night before is when he told me. And then she did that the following evening, mad about the amount of money that was in it. And then 10 days later, she had cashed out his 401k while he was unconscious. From that incident, he was for a couple months totally not with it at all. And he did not ever give her permission to cash this 401k out. Mind you, she had no clue we had been talking about power of attorney all along from the beginning of his injury, because now it had been a year. Now that sentence at the beginning of his injury, the first month of his injury, where he said, you had your money, I had mine, plays a role in that incident a year later, where I'm telling people she cashed out his 401k without his permission. That should have never been allowed to happen. She moved it into trust for herself, and at no time should have ever been moved or touched. He says it right here with his own words when he's fully with it. You had your money, I had mine. Why would her hands be on his 401k? Mind you, she had no intention of him living through that incident. She had never had any intention on him coming home. And, I tried to tell numerous people, and that's why I brought the notary and eventually tried to get the power of attorney paper signed at the best time possible in April of 2024. And he even stated to the notary I brought that he never gave her permission to cash out his 401k or move it or touch it. But this text came directly from him when he was fully with it. So it proves that that should have never happened. And because you have her manipulating all these people and all these agencies, no one believes anything that I'm saying. But the proof is in the pudding. And the problem is, when I try to report everything, there's so many agencies, so many jurisdictions, so many hospital systems, so many different people involved at all these different areas and different cities. Now it's in numerous states because it's followed me to Ohio. There's all this, there's too much going on for anyone to ever follow along. It would take me over an hour to sit down because I have pieced it all together. I have quite a bit of information, and I would have to present it in person. This is not something I can explain to somebody over the phone or report in an email because it's that extreme, and it's been going on for so many decades, long before his injury. So that sentence right there proves everything else that ended up happening about a year later. Still, nobody's looking into it. These people are helping her commit the crimes and cover them up. And there's much information that's false written in these police reports along the way about me by these police officers who she's manipulating. That's their idea of investigating. So if you watch the rest of my videos, you will be able to piece together everything in a big picture view, very clear, if you watch all of my videos and everything that I'm talking about. Now, in the same set of text, this goes on for a little bit. She states, "I was in the shower and you still won't answer me." Exclamation point. Is there money to pay these bills? Or do I have to wait? Exclamation point. You are lousy with money. Always have been and still is. One of your credit card bills is over $3,000. Exclamation point. The other, $1,500. Exclamation point. You should be ashamed of yourself. Exclamation point. No wonder you didn't want to stop working. Exclamation point. I don't let my credit cards ruin my life the way you did. Exclamation point. None of this is anything you would be texting somebody in the condition he's in. This is 3 weeks after his injury. You wouldn't be texting somebody any of that stuff in that state. He is not thinking about anything like that. He is severely injured in extreme states of pain and suffering, disabled from the stomach down, being all new to him. And just, you can tell that these are extremely inappropriate for the condition he's in. And then her telling him, "Oh, I'd hate to drive all that way for an hour or two, and it's rush hour," and she has nothing better to do. She is retired. She has no kids, no grandkids, no pets. I've been long gone for over 20 years. My kids, she's never raised any of my kids, is not allowed to have a relationship with my youngest. And there's no one around. There's nothing for her to do. That is what she is supposed to be doing. So there is so much proof in all of these texts, in everything that I have. And no one is piecing any of this together to get the bigger picture of what's been going on and what is still going on. I'm just kind of speaking from experience, because this is what she was getting the people around me to act like during my injury, except for they were screaming all this stuff in my face. While I was fighting for my life with my brain swelling and sagging and 50, 60 severe symptoms at once. So I understand his position and what he's, in his mind, he's not thinking, he's just thinking, I don't know what he's thinking, but he's realizing something isn't right with her behavior. This is not how you would act towards somebody with these injuries at that time, shortly after all of this happened. Now, let's see. So she goes on, I believe this is the same day. Yeah. Okay. So, oh, and the other thing about the credit cards and the debt, their house is worth way more than what's owed on it. Those are like Home Depot cards or whatever. She's not understanding the balance between how much real estate is worth, and the balance between, good debt, bad debt. He used that money to continue working on the home. That's not a lot of debt compared to the overall picture of the financial situation and what the home is worth. That's nothing. So she's talking about it's ruining his life. The way she's talking to him, that's delusional, because it's just not how things work. She's not with it in reality on how things work. you know, she starts asking him, he's asking her about where some of his shirts are, and he's telling her that they couldn't find them for him, and she's telling him that there's 2 of them there. And then he says, well, I'll just have them look again. Bring me a notebook and a writing pad. That's because he's realizing she's saying all these strange things and wants to write it down, and began realizing she's beginning to delete these mean messages from his phone when she's coming to visit him after she sends them, but not realizing I'm here in between taking pictures of all this. And then she's talking about, oh, well, your check's going to be on hold for a certain amount of days before, you know, after it's deposited. And he's like, I'm not worried about it. That's not what he's worried about. When you're in that type of physical state of suffering and that extreme of an injury, that's not something you're worried about. So she's demanding that he call her back about something regarding setting up his My Beaumont chart to log into his medical file. And she's getting mad at him. She's yelling at him in these texts. You need to call me. All you had to tell them was your home email address. They would have sent me a code on the computer so I could set it up. You get everything so fucked up, it's unreal! Exclamation point. She's just yelling at him. Totally inappropriate for the situation at hand, the condition he's in. He sends her a picture of some crumble cookies that his work had sent him at the hospital, and she said, who brought you those? He said, work. And then she said, I'm going to mass at 9 a.m. tomorrow for Ash Wednesday. My ringer will be turned off. So basically, she's not going to be available that Sunday or whatever. She's not there all week anyway. So who knows what she's actually doing during any of this. And here I am I was staying at my house in Ohio. Here I am coming from Ohio almost every night, or staying on my friend's couch and making sure I'm there every night. And I'm injured myself, suffering. And she's off doing whatever during all this. And then she sends him a picture after he sent her the crumble cookie picture of the box of cookies. She sends him a picture of it is vodka infused whipped cream, and says, I'm having pudding shots with vodka infused whipped cream, and sends him a picture. Okay, so somebody that's that sick and injured is not thinking about drinking alcohol. Again, I'm speaking from personal experience. That's not something you're doing or even thinking about. It's not even possible when you're that sick and injured. And that's what she's sending him. That was just the first set of inappropriate texts. So then he starts, so this is a couple days later, he's getting moved to U of M. This was February 28th. He's telling her, you should have been here to help pack my stuff. Mind you, I was there. I did make it there for this. And she says, I'm busy paying bills at Meyer now, not like I live around the corner. Okay, well, I'm in another state, living in my house in another state at this point, staying there while I'm waiting for the gas particles to clear at my main home in Flat Rock, and I'm over an hour away, and I'm injured myself. I'm here making it to him. She has nothing better to do, but this is her response to him. And then he says, you could have done that stuff this afternoon. She says, you're getting on my nerves! Exclamation point. And then he tells her, you have no sense of good use of time except for when it comes to parties. And then she says, I would like to wring your neck, but I can't because of your brace. Are you there yet, or are you arriving tomorrow? So again, all inappropriate text. That's all in less than a month after his initial injury. Now, I do have videos of him shaking once he goes into septic shock as well, a couple of those, once that starts happening regularly, because I kept showing up and finding him that way after she began visiting him at Special Tree, and I'd find him that way. So I did get a couple videos of that. And then down the line here, she's texting a cousin about me talking to family members of someone that I'm talking to, and me talking about my treatments, and a red flag could go up, basically stating that I have this mental disorder. My injury was never real because I required daily treatment for all those years and still had to maintain treatment weekly. I was still maintaining treatment once or twice a week at this time. So daily treatment for 2.5 years, and I was still doing weekly 1 to 2 times a week as well. And and she calls it rambling about my treatments. She's acting like the injury never occurred with me or my son, that I made the entire thing up, and that it's all a mental disorder. Mind you, she is the one who prevented us from getting treatment within the medical system. So this text right here proves that that's what she's been telling people, or she's telling people I'm not injured at all, it's all a mental disorder, I made the whole thing up, and I ramble about treatments. No, our situation was so extreme, we required them to stay alive. And if treatment was to be, if it would have stopped, if I would have, so shortly after this, I did become unable to maintain treatment several months after this, because there was another brain injury, and I was dead for 15 minutes and came back on my own. And that from that point forward, it was nothing but a downhill slope from there. So I then lost the ability to maintain treatments. There was too much on my plate, and it caused a significant decline. So we require them to stay alive. If we go too long without treatment, we will no longer be alive. And that's our reality. And she is you can tell in this text to this family member and it's about me, stating that, oh, me rambling about treatments. No, we required them weekly at the time that this text was sent. We still had to have them weekly. We had never missed in order to keep us alive. That's how extreme our injury was still at that point. It still is very serious. We just remain homebound, and we live modified lives due to that, because we can't just go anywhere, especially when we don't have regular treatments ongoing to clear what we pick up going out and about in the world. And I'm going to do a video on how all that works with our systems and what the problem is and what's wrong, because we can't just pick up particles and take in particles and gases and chemicals, small amounts that aren't they're not harmful to other people who haven't had this type of extreme injury. So that's another piece of the proof of the bigger picture of everything that she's been lying about and the delusions she tells people. Okay, so then, okay. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out which one is first. So now this is July 26th of 2023. This one I took the picture, but some of these texts are from the 19th. Okay, so okay, so then he texts her, no warning. So this is Monday, July 27, 2023. No warning. They just told me I'm being picked up at 2. Nothing is packed. Mind you, he can't do any of this himself. And again, I'm making it from Ohio, and here I am getting myself there while I'm sick and injured. And she texts him, that's okay. They will pack up and leave nothing behind. Just remember that the thicker tops are on the hooks and are clean. And he said nobody up here knows how to run the Hoyer lift. They had the van changed to 3. I am still not in the chair, in the wheelchair, because he needs a Hoyer lift to get into the wheelchair. And she says, okay, let me know when you're on your way. Try to be positive and not complain so much. He eventually texts her that he made it there to Special Tree. It was from U of M to Special Tree at this point, because he had gotten rushed back to U of M. Or he stayed, I believe, for a while to do some physical therapy and some other things, and then he had a heart attack there. So he stayed longer, and so he was on his way back to Special Tree. Let's see. Okay, so the rest of those texts don't matter, but then there's more right around that same time. It says she has too much stuff to do this weekend to take care of the house and be running around. And he texts her in capital letters, WTF. She said, you need to quit thinking about yourself and think a little more about me, exclamation point. And then he tells her, you're not a very good support person. She says, you have a lot of nerve to say that to me, exclamation point. You could be married to someone like their friend Kathy. And then he says, you were supposed to shave me today. You didn't have to stay all day. And he said, forget it. He'd have my daughter do it. Because then my daughter began doing it regularly for him at that point, going forward from there. Because she was not trying to help him at all during any of this. My daughter took over that job fairly early on, and I believe is still the one that does it. And then she says, again, you're thinking about yourself and not even a little about me. After you get in your chair, you can go in the bathroom and take care of it yourself the way you did before. He tells her, I told you not to get involved in cutting the grass, and the house cannot be dirty unless you're having company. And she says, I can't cut the grass, too much rain. I haven't cleaned the floors or vacuumed in 2 weeks. Everything is dusty and gritty. Taking my class at 9, then cleaning so I can make it to church at 4. Need to stop at the bank to deposit your check too. You're getting on my nerves. I haven't taken a class in so long. Forgot classes at 9:15 today. I tried to tell you this house was too much for one of us to be stuck with, and you wouldn't listen to me. Now look at the mess we're in. Okay, so the way she's talking to him, again, in his state, again, not seeing him regularly. Here I am running all over the place in between states, not sleeping well. My son's homeschooled. He's injured with me. We're trying to maintain treatment. I'm trying to maintain working enough to maintain treatment because it's self-pay. I'm chronically sick with continuous waxing and waning symptoms, and I'm making it there nearly every night and nearly every transfer for him. During all this, while this is what she is saying to him, she does not have anything to do. There's nothing for her to be doing except for taking care of her husband, who has paid all of these bills all of her life. And she's just acting like she has other things she's got to do. Here she is making sure she's making it to church and classes and this and exercise and that, and I'm going to clean and da. I'm not able to do any of that stuff. I haven't pieced that back together in my own life for my own injury, and here I am taking care of him, running all over the place. So basically, she's using my energy. She's an energy vampire, using up my energy to do all of these things for him while she's talking to him like that, treating him like that, while I'm sick and injured and using up everything I have to get all of these things done for him. So you can clearly see she's not neurotypical. She is in a mindset of believing everything is about her, and all these things are supposed to come before the things that he needs to be taken care of. In the condition and the injury that he has, he's extremely unwell. I'm extremely unwell, and this is what's coming out of her mouth. Well, I mean, in a text, but still. So now here is the recording. So shortly after that is when they released him, because that was toward the end of July. First week in August, Specialty released him to go with my mother for that weekend, and then she dumped him off near death, where he ended up intubated at Beaumont Wayne. That was the first time. That's how he got the trach. And this was her, the phone call. She had placed a phone call from his phone to my daughter's phone, and I happened to pick up my phone and record it because of the way she was acting over the phone call. I mean, her intention during that trip was to finish him off. She had no intention on him living, on top of the fact that I'm sure she poisoned numerous batches of food, because that's what she does. And he had just had us change the passcode to his phone just before this, and somehow she still managed to get into it. And you can hear it in the, here.
Somebody told me they were afraid that he had a heart attack, but they said no, but that blockage, it causes other issues to go wrong. So they don't think there was any kind of a heart attack. I don't know why you're yelling. Blockage. What are you talking about, dude? He didn't do anything. He was just trying to get taken care of. You kept holding his bag up every time we moved him. I kept telling you to put it down.
calling you from Papa's phone?
Because I wanted to see if anybody had called him, if he missed any calls today. And I just seen your name on there. And I didn't know if that was from yesterday or today. And I brought it home to charge it. And I couldn't call a lot of people because my phone was going dead.
How'd you get the password?
I guessed it what it was. He told me what his password was a long time ago. And I kept forgetting it, and then I just kind of remembered, and I put it in and it worked. So that's the problem. It isn't anything I did wrong. And it needs to be replaced every 2 weeks, not every 4 weeks, because it keeps getting blocked. And I told him, and then when we went to, the nurse care manager was afraid it's because he left special tree without all of his medications. He left without the 2 narcotics, the gabapentin and the other stuff. And I go, I don't know. I said, he just told them that they had plenty of notice. Why wasn't everything ready for him to leave? Then they were supposed to give me suppositories for him. There was no suppositories. They just gave me all of his meds and no suppositories. That causes a problem too. Because they said, that, he needed to have a bowel movement. And before I left him last night, I said, Tom, I left about 4:30. I said, tell the nurse to put in a suppository now. And I don't know if he ever told her or not. But it was blocked up down there too. Well, I gotta go. I'm doing a lot.
Okay.
Okay, so now you hear how mad she got? She's yelling at my daughter like that. Mind you, she was what, 18 at the time? 17 or 18? Screaming at her, you treat me the way he does. Okay, not neurotypical. Nobody hears her act that way or talk that way to people. When she's out in the public talking to all these people, all these friends, family members, cops, hospital employees, nobody ever hears her say stuff like that in that manner. Only behind closed doors that stuff is said. Second of all, you hear her say that she just guessed it and he told her the passcode a long time ago. We had just changed it the week before. There's no way. So somehow she managed to get it. Third, the problem was the poisoned food causes the UTIs. We've known this for years, long before his injury. It's just more of a problem now since his injury because he has to be catheterized. So that's why all those blockages in the urine, because when she poisons the food, that is the result of it, even more extravagant than it used to be before the injury, and he didn't have those problems. He would just get a regular UTI. Now, the other thing is when they released him to go on this trip, I don't know where the proof was, but I do recall supposedly they released him with all his meds except the pain meds. That's because she was pulling his pain meds and removing them from him so he would suffer. Because part of the Munchausen by proxy is causing pain and suffering in others, which she has also done to my younger son and I. It's not just physical, but she likes to mentally and emotionally cause suffering as well in any which way she can. So I'm aware he was released on this trip with no pain meds. So that again made him even worse, why he was not feeling good, and it got worse and worse as well. And that was the beginning of me figuring out how she was pulling his pain meds from his chart upon every transfer, because from there forward he was getting rushed back to the hospital even more. And that's where she would pull the meds upon every transfer, and I started picking up on it because it was literally every transfer from that point forward until I had gotten banned at the end of April. And I would have to pull the nurses aside and get them re-put back in his chart, which I was able to do until she got me banned. So there's numerous problems here. That phone call is an admission of guilt on many levels. So then she sends my daughter a text. She says something about, it's about me. She says, I talked to your mom yesterday about adult protective services and she couldn't even look me in the eye. So I know she called on me. She's been turned into CPS so many times. She couldn't wait to try to have something on me. That's because she had called CPS on me for all those decades. And that's her basically admitting that. I'm not the one who called CPS. Beaumont Wayne did. So clearly she's guilty, and that's why she thinks that, and why she's texting my daughter that, because I'm not the one who called. I did call to try to give my opinion and my experience with everything, but nobody would speak with me at any time. So now this is August 21st, 2023 in these texts, and she's texting me this. At this point, I'm down in Ohio. I've been running around all year, so now it's been almost 7 months. Here I am running back and forth between states, still trying to maintain my main form of self-employment minimally, still trying to get through each day, no rest, no recovery, for my own injury, straight into his injury, all the chaos from the Ford gas leak, get moved into my place in Ohio barely. Then there was a chemical spill in Wixom, Michigan, which had spread over 100 miles out, and it made its way down to Ohio and to my house in Flat Rock. And from those particles, I couldn't walk for 3 months. So I did have like those 3 months of resting, sheltered in place, but I was in extreme pain from my left leg. All oxygen was cut off from those particles getting through my open brain tissue, and the blood-brain barrier goes all down the spinal cord as well. And I have the lower back injury from when I first fell, and those particles were dripping down my left leg, and it cut off all oxygen to my left leg in such an extreme manner. I was in such extreme pain and suffering, and my toenails later lost all oxygen, and the big one fell off several months later after this. So I had went through all of that, and then barely kept it all going, still getting to my dad every night, still making sure he had clean food. And now it's August of that year, and he fell at the end of January. So here, I'm like getting wiped out. I'm all over the place, barely hanging on myself. And I'm at home in my bed in Ohio, and I found my place in Ohio to be the safest, most peaceful amount of time and comfortability I've ever had in my life, because I refused to share my location with anybody, because our lives were in danger on numerous levels. And so when I was there, I felt like really good, like safe, physically, mentally, emotionally. I've never felt that way in my life, due to her ongoing harassment, abuse, crimes, agencies chasing me, all these people screaming at me, numerous reasons. So this is where I was when this text came through. And she's saying, because this is August 21st, okay, 2023. She says, transferring your dad tonight at 8 p.m. to Beaumont Taylor. She says the room number, he has pneumonia, but he can finish his course of antibiotics over there at Vibra. Okay, but he's got pneumonia because that's the result of her poisoned food, what she uses in the food to poison. That leads to phlegm in the lungs and then leads to pneumonia. UTIs, which then lead to sepsis and septic shock if it's not caught in time and reversed. All of the same set of symptoms every round. This has been going on numerous times at this point. And that's why this is going on. My response to her at this point, because now I'm just laid out feeling unwell, I said, well, I won't be there tonight. I can't leave home. It's making me very unwell, running all over the place when I'm still very injured myself, still in need of proper treatment. Funny how Beaumont refuses to treat me for a medical emergency they left untreated because their employee told them none of what happened to my son and I is real. And then she didn't respond. So I said, instead of having all of us running all over the place for all these months, which is now going to turn into years, we could have remodeled my Flat Rock house with very minimal work in under a week. It was already almost finished. It's already set up for someone in a wheelchair, because it had been about 2 years from the time of the initial spill. So these particles would have been clear enough for us to return to the home at this point. And that girl who stayed in the house, she'd been in it a year, her lease was up. So it would have been, we could have simply moved him home with minimal work, very, very minimal amount of money, very minimal amount of time, could have been done. We could have got him in. We could have all been situated up in Flat Rock together, because my son and I live modified lives, homebound mostly together. And then we do go places now, but it's taxing. So we stay home a lot. And there, I don't have a problem with it. I'm used to it. I've been injured at this point for over 7 years. I'm used to it. I don't have a problem sitting here with him. She's off running around all over the place, partying, going out with people all day, every day. So in this text, I'm telling her we could have had her, the tenant could have been out. Her lease had expired like a month or two prior. Could have had her out. He could have already been moved home. none of this stuff would have ever happened because I wouldn't have allowed her food into my home. I wouldn't have allowed her food to be fed to him. I would have been the one cooking, and I would have just remained homebound with him. And because he has his own care team, I wouldn't have been the one, directly responsible for having to do all those tasks for him, although I would have been supporting backup. I could have just kept running our lives the way we were prior to us being abruptly uprooted from my home initially, and those people would have maintained it all. I'm still the better candidate to have custody of him and run everything. So I'm telling her this is what should have already happened, because she couldn't tell anybody that that's actually my house. I pay all the bills. I run everything. I'm self-made, self-built. There is no mental disorder. My son and I are permanently injured. Due to her actions, it's more extreme. And that we live homebound, and that it's not a problem for us to sit here with him because that's already our lives. And she couldn't let anybody know that, or let any of these people she's been spreading these delusions to, and the people from the workers' comp and control of his care, Terry Knorr, couldn't be letting her know that my house is bigger and more comfortable and already set up for him to be here in a wheelchair with minimal modifications. Couldn't let anybody know the truth. So I then state, we could have all been moved back in comfortably, situated comfortably, something along the lines of, okay, well, when 911 is called, they show up at this address fairly quickly. Not only that, my neighbor across the street is a retired cop. My neighbor next door used to be a nurse, but works from home at this point, doing something else from home. And so should anything abruptly happen, there's people that are going to be able to get to him fairly quickly, but nothing abruptly should be happening, because if he's in my care, that stuff won't be happening. These incidences that are happening are being caused by her, and her poison food. So if he's in my home, then that wouldn't be happening. Even then, like I said, there's numerous backups, and people would be here quickly if something got that extreme that fast. And then on top of that, he would have his own paid care team and a rotation of care providers here as well that workers' comp would be paying for. So there wouldn't have been a problem, basically. Now, all that would have been needed is a ramp and a stair lift so he could shower, or the bathroom downstairs could have been remodeled. And the 5th bedroom he built himself, he'd closed it out. It's already set up for a wheelchair, and he would have had his own living room, and that bathroom could have been his handicap bathroom. We could have remodeled it. We could have taken that closet out, used that all, turned that whole bathroom into his handicap shower, and those 3 rooms right there could have been his own private area because the house is so big. But again, she's so jealous and envious she couldn't let anybody know of where I really am in life and what I have and what I've achieved. So, and then I said, instead you want to lie to everybody about where I am in life, what I've accomplished, because it would blow the cover off which one of us really has the mental disorder. And she said, you have a tenant in the Flat Rock house. That house is already trashed. And I said, that tenant could have been moved out in a timely manner, seeing as how he fell in January. And you don't know anything about real estate. It was all just minimal work that needed to be done. It wouldn't have been a problem. I don't know what you think you know about my tenants or my house, seeing as how you were only in the house once 5 years ago. And then she says, oh, those damn kids she has, the place is trashed. Again, you know nothing about real estate or how it works, or doing work on any homes. The only reason I had to even put a tenant in there in the first place is because you inserted yourself in the Ford gas leak, called the mayor into the top of Ford to tell them my son and I do not have a severe condition, but instead a mental disorder, and got them to cut off our hotel so we would be forced to live there, slowly suffer and die. Little did you know the person I really am and what I've really accomplished. You didn't know I had enough cash to go buy a whole other house in a whole other state and move us to safety to keep us alive. And she says, your ideas are really great if you had 5 years clean and sober. And then I said, you're way more delusional than I initially thought. My life speaks for itself, and those things you're calling ideas are reality. Nothing but delusions come out of your mouth whenever you talk about me. I've never had a drug problem or mental disorder. In fact, I even hired a psychologist 3.5 years ago to prove it. So her response saying those things, me being clean and sober 5 years, so you can clearly see that she's been telling people all these delusions that are not real about me whatsoever. No one's even realizing the serious injuries that I've suffered from the condition. I can't do drugs. I'm that injured, like it would kill me. She's so far gone from reality and so far heavily riding on these delusions and all these people believing them that had to be her response. And at this point, it's looking like she believes her own delusions. And then there's some texts about me. In the one video, I talk about how I needed the truck taken from my daughter because of her behavior, and how the Flat Rock police back up the disrespect, and then my daughter jumps in on it with them, and it's because they disrespect me in my home. They were still disrespecting me, even just coming to make a report on the damage to my home. And then she states, because I was texting from my dad's phone pretending to be him, stating you need to take the truck back. And then she just says, oh, she lies so much. How can you believe anything she's saying? I'm never known to lie. Those are delusions. She's been telling people this for decades. So in case I ever told anybody the truth about her poisoning the food, nobody would ever believe me. So no, I've never been known to lie. I'm known to speak the truth. That is the problem here. And then at one point, I text her, this is around the same time, so this is fall of 2023. I don't know, WTF you think you're up to with this brainwashing BS, but I promise you that shit is not going to end well for you. And she said, what are you talking about? All these question marks. I said, whatever you've been brainwashing my daughter to say and do for the past few years, that shit is not going to continue. I don't know who the fuck you people think I am, but I promise you, I am far from stupid. And she said, I still don't know what you're talking about. Your daughter and I never discuss you. I have too much going on with your dad to be discussing you. And then I said, I didn't say anything about you two discussing me. She said, you said brainwashing her, so that would mean me talking to her about you. I don't know what you're talking about, all these question marks. And I said, that certainly doesn't mean you were talking directly to her. I figured out what you've been up to years ago and even hired a professional to document everything and help me figure it out. And then she just says, again, I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't have time for your nonsense. You need to stop with the weed and the Xanax. It puts you out of your mind. And I said, oh, you mean the script the doctor had to give me due to the chaos and the brain damage and the effects I suffer from and the chaos that you participated in causing? And the brain damage that you participated in causing? You might have the rest of the world fooled, but certainly not me. I could see right through you from the time I was 3 years old. That's why you decided to farm delusions about me to all the local police departments for the past 23 years now. You're also the reason my daughter is not graduated from high school yet. I don't know where you get off telling the entire community and your entire family that you raised and have had custody of my older two kids all of these years. And then she says, still don't know what you're talking about. Again, no time for your nonsense. See ya. And I said, that's exactly the delusions. You have your family members scream at me on your behalf. No time, huh? That's because you spend all your time with your malicious activities, destroying or trying to every move I make. You're not a day past 12 years old mentally and emotionally. She didn't say anything after that. So, you know, because there's numerous family members that say that about something about my nonsense or my drug problem or this. It's because this all comes from her. These are delusions. None of that's ever been real about me. This is extreme defamation of character, extreme slander, extreme gossip. I mean, this stuff has destroyed my life, especially with all the delusional phone calls. Like I said, to the community, and the entire community, to every friend, family member, neighbor, everybody she's ever worked with, every police department she's ever called, any situation going on that she's ever inserted herself in. That's what she says to these people. And then there's ongoing harassment for decades due to it. I mean, she was doing this when I was a child in elementary school with my teachers. It grew to where it is today. She farmed it, like I said, farmed it over the decades to get it to where it is today. And these texts and these calls, everything I've said proves it. Now, some of these, what I've read to you fit right in to some of these reports, some of these other incidences along the way that I have produced and done other videos on. Everything fits together as one giant puzzle. It seems to be that all of these authorities I have tried to ask for help, their mind is so stuck in the small box that they're not supposed to think out of. that they can't see the bigger picture, even when I'm telling them I have all the evidence, I've done all the work, here's all the proof, this is what's been going on, this is still going on, it's not going to stop until somebody stops her. Nobody wants to, or because there's so many pieces of information, they keep trying to stop me and act like it's just this one thing, or it's just this, or it's just, no, there are hundreds of incidences along the way. You have to listen to the entire thing. Take all the pieces and put it together, because it's one giant picture and very clearly explains what's been going on all of these decades, and it's still going on today. These are serious crimes, numerous attempted murders. That recording of her talking, and during that time, we were sitting in my dad's hospital room while he's completely unconscious, intubated, and that's her reaction. Numerous lies within that recording. There's many problems here. No one's taking any of this seriously. You know, this needs to be investigated properly. And most of these agencies laugh when I try to report it and say, I've done all the work, because the Toledo FBI took me seriously and then directed me what to do next. And I've done all that now. I have all that. It took me some time. I do have most of it now. And if I don't, I can tell you where to find it. And each person laughs in my face when I say the words, my mother. And then she laughs like a deranged lunatic, as she has my whole life, even when I was a child. Everybody always believes the mother's always right. So now she's manipulated every single person along the way, believing all these delusions about me, and that is their response, because they think of their own cookie baking loving mother. They are not comprehending the deranged lunatic I have been dealing with my entire life, who's still getting away with decades of crimes. Ongoing. Won't stop until somebody stops her. There's more than enough proof. All I need is somebody to sit down with me for an hour. I can explain it all in an hour, most of it within an hour, depending on their level of comprehension. I need at least 2 investigators who can think for themselves, think outside the box, and be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together in the manner in which I have, because it's all there. No one's listening to me. There's many people involved, many agencies. This is very disgusting. I need somebody to take this seriously. I just showed you more than enough proof. That's just one little sector of proof. There is so much more to this. So I'll be back with another one. Thanks. Bye.